Welcome to the Wisconsin Region orientation for Disaster Cycle Services. I'm going to be taking you through some information specifically about Disaster Cycle Services and the Wisconsin Region. Our orientation outline for today, we're going to touch on our mission, how Wisconsin Region is organized, volunteer connection, EDGE, gaps, and DAT. This orientation is really meant to help give you some basic information about Disaster Cycle Services, help you to become familiar with acronyms that you may start hearing working with the American Red Cross, and some of your next steps that you can expect as a volunteer. I do like to start out with the American Red Cross mission statement. This is why we're all here. I'm not going to read every slide to you. However, I do think that it is important because this is why we're here. This is why we're volunteering, why we're doing training, why we're trying to get all the information that we're getting. And we're doing that because the American Red Cross prevents and alleviates human suffering in the face of emergencies by mobilizing the power of volunteers and the generosity of donors. So very important, our mission statement. Again, it is why we do what we do. Starting out with the Wisconsin Region, here is just a map breakdown of what the Wisconsin Region looks like. We do have 5 different chapters that you can see in the different color codes here that do make up the Wisconsin Region. With that, just some names for you to start seeing, become familiar with. With our chapter staff, each of those chapters either has 2 disaster program managers or it has a disaster program manager and a disaster program specialist. So as you start to become familiar with your chapter, these are the folks that are really going to help guide you through Disaster Cycle Services, address questions, let you know about meetings. They're really, one of your main go-to people within each of your chapters. With that, we also have some paid staff that work on a regional level, meaning that they're not designated to one specific chapter or another. Rather, they help the entire Wisconsin region in their role. And as you can see here, we do have just 1 vacant spot at this point. However, the folks that you're looking at are currently the regional staff in the Wisconsin region. Here's where we're going to start to get into things that you really should become familiar with, start utilizing. We're going to start talking about volunteer connection. Everyone that's listening to this as you are coming through the intake process should have received an email with an attachment in it. And that attachment has a welcome packet and would have been labeled a welcome packet. I like to point that out because everything I'm going to be talking about today is going to be in that welcome packet. So if you get done listening to this orientation and don't remember anything at the end of after the end of this orientation, you can always refer back to that welcome packet, which will take you through step-by-step guide of the different things we're going to talk about. So I'm going to start out with Volunteer Connection. Volunteer Connection is our system that all volunteers and paid staff use within Disaster Cycle Services. This is really where you are going to log your volunteer hours. It's how you're going to get into EDGE, which we'll talk about in a minute. It's how you're going to get into group pages. It's how folks deploy to national disasters. So Volunteer Connection is utilized for many different ways besides the ones that I even just listed off. So it is a system that we encourage you to log into frequently and to become familiar with. The next few slides that we're going to go through are really going to be some screenshots of Volunteer Connection and how to start navigating that system. The main features that I'm going to be talking about during this orientation, I have pointed out here on the screen. So we're going to be talking about My Profile, which is that tab along the tabs across the top, your My Group section, how to submit your volunteer hours, and how to connect to Edge. First thing that we're going to do is that we're going to talk about how to submit your volunteer hours. As you just saw how to even get to this page, you're going to look for the Submit Hours button. It's a nice big red button on your home page of your Volunteer Connection account. Once you hit that button, it's going to take you to this page where it's going to ask you for some information. Anything with an asterisk next to it is what is required to go in there. So something will need to be populated in order for you to submit your volunteer hours. The date will automatically populate with the current date. Hours, that is how many hours. Was it 1 hour? Was it 5 hours? And then you can break it down by minutes as well. You know, an hour and a half, an hour and 45. The activity name is going to be, what is it that you are doing? When submitting volunteer hours, what we essentially ask you is that if you're on Red Cross time, we ask you to record those volunteer hours. So, for example, by watching this orientation video, you can put watched Wisconsin Region orientation in the activity name. You could put classroom training, traveling to meeting, disaster cycle services meeting, on-call DAT, really anything that you're doing, whether it be traveling, meetings, training. Again, if you're on Red Cross time, we do ask you to submit the hours. Under the hours type, you're going to find a drop box, and under there, there's going to be more than a couple of different options, but really the two things you're going to want to pay attention to is worked and on call. Now, a majority of everything that you put in to your hours is going to be considered worked. The only other one that you would ever use would be on call. And on call is if you are doing specifically that. So let's say that you take a DAT shift and you are on call for DAT, but you're still going to the grocery store, you're still going to go see a movie, but if that phone rings when you're on call, you're going to pick it up and see if they need you to respond to a disaster. So if you're on call and you're just waiting for that phone call, that's technically going to be your on-call time, but the moment that you pick up that phone, the moment that you start getting ready to go to a disaster, you travel to a disaster, you're on the scene at a disaster, those are all considered worked. Along with trainings and meetings, pretty much everything is worked, again, unless you are very specifically doing an on-call shift, and really you're living your day-to-day life, but you're on call, willing to take that phone call if your help is needed. Position is another thing that needs to be filled out. Again, you will have a drop box in there. And this is really asking you to associate, what are those hours associated with? So positions could be a DAP member. Positions could be a mass care shelter worker. So if you are responding to a DAT call, if you are on call for a DAT call, the position you're going to pick is your DAT position. If it's more general, you can certainly use, your sheltering position that you have on there. It's a little bit less strict when you're talking about meetings or you're talking about training, but you will be asked to pick a position. And then once you're done, you'll click the red button that says Submit Hours. The next thing that we're going to talk about is updating your profile. When we looked at that first screenshot in that tab section, there was a big box that said My Profile on it. When you click on that, you're going to come to a second page, and in the upper left-hand corner, you're going to see profile information with a light gray Edit Profile button that you'll click on, and you can see a picture of that here on the screen. Now, when you click on that, you're going to come to another page where you're going to see all these different names. You're going to see photo, name, primary address, contact information. If you click on those names, the field will expand where you can fill in the information that it's requesting. And when you're done with it, you can click on that name again and that field will contract, and you can just keep on going right down the line. And really, the more information that we have within the system, the better. We may utilize it to run a report and see who we have that would be available to respond to a local disaster if we had to open a shelter. If you are out conducting Red Cross business and get hurt and we need to contact someone, your emergency contacts are going in here. If we're trying to, with just basic contact information like your phone number, your current email address. So all the different information that's in here is relevant and is utilized in one way or another when we're trying to get teams together to respond to disasters. One of the other big items that you'll utilize is group pages. Now, depending on what your interests are within the American Red Cross Disaster Cycle Services, you will have different group pages that you belong to. The one that everyone belongs to in Disaster Cycle Services is highlighted here on the page, and that is Disaster Cycle Services Wisconsin Region. So again, we go back up to that tabs area on the home page of your Volunteer Connection account, and it says My Groups. If you hover over that My Groups, it will list the different group pages that you belong to that you can get into. And then all you have to do is click on the name of the group and it will bring you to that group page. Now, all group pages are very much set up the exact same way. They're going to look very similar. They're going to have pretty much the same tabs that you're going to see. Under the Disaster Cycle Services Wisconsin Region group page, the main things that we put in here under the calendar section, the calendars tab, you'll be able to find the Wisconsin Region training. So what training we have coming up, what times they are, where those locations are, and how to register for those classes. Under the files section is quite a few files that are relevant to everyone in Disaster Cycle Services. We do encourage you to go in there, open those files, take a look at them. Don't be afraid of opening anything. And then the last thing about group pages is that we do encourage everyone to subscribe to each of their group pages, and you will have to subscribe individually to the different group pages that you belong to. When you initially go into a group page, as you can see here, it's highlighted right now where it says click here to unsubscribe from nightly updates. And what that means is that this particular person is already subscribed. And you just click on that and it will subscribe you to the group page. And when you subscribe to your different group pages, at the end of the night, if folks go into that group page and update something, put a piece of new documentation in there, maybe put in some new training that's coming up, the system will take all that new information, combine it in one email for you, and email it to you at the end of the night. So you get one email that you can open up and see everything that's new within all your different group pages, so you don't have to go searching for information. In the upper right hand corner, you're going to find a couple hyperlinks. They're going to say connect to Edge and connect to the Exchange. We are going to go over Edge and what that means and how to connect to it. However, you may also see folks that tell you, or hear folks tell you, that you can find that information on the Exchange. The Exchange is really just a big database that carries the most up-to-date documents that the Red Cross uses, forms the Red Cross uses, guidance and information, policies, procedures. It is where all of us go to get the most current information. So if you ever hear of anyone say you can find that on the Exchange, you can indeed. So as I just talked about before, Edge is you can connect to Edge by logging into your Volunteer Connection account, and in the upper right hand corner see that hyperlink that says connect to Edge. Edge is our learning management for the American Red Cross. The only time that you're ever going to use Edge is when you are registering for classroom classes or you're taking online self-studies. There are 5 different courses that everyone in Disaster Cycle Services is required to take, and they're listed here for you. And they are Disaster Cycle Services and Overview, Concept of Operations and Overview, Psychological First Aid, Everyone is Welcome, and then the last one you can take Shelter Fundamentals or Recovery Services and Overview. Every one of these classes is now an online self-study within Edge, so online self-studies are great because you can take them when it's convenient for you and when you have some time. Now, just like we did with Volunteer Connection, we're going to go through a couple screenshots of just some important points within Edge to help you start navigating. Once you get into Edge, this is your home page. Really, the two main things that you're going to want to pay attention to is the My Transcripts box and then the search box, which is in that upper right-hand corner. When you are looking for a class, there's a couple different things that you need to note. By utilizing that search box in the upper right-hand corner, you can start to type in the class that you're looking for. As you type in the class, you're going to, this system is automatically going to pull down a list of classes that have those words as that are maybe part of that search. When you find the class that you're looking for, you're going to want to click on the name of the class, which will bring you to a separate page. And on that page, you're going to see a request button. And then you can go ahead and hit that request button, and that is you requesting to take that class. The other main thing I want to point out is that you're going to see a couple different icons, and I'd like to let you know what those mean. You may see a picture of a calendar next to the name of the class. You may see a picture of a little computer screen next to the name of the class, or as you can see here, a picture of a stack of books next to the name of that class. If you see a calendar, what that means is that that is a classroom class. It means that when you sign up for it, you will be physically going to a location to take a class. If you see a computer screen next to it, that means that it's an online self-study, that you can take it right on your computer. And the third one means a curriculum. And so this is where it can get maybe sometimes a bit tricky. So as you can see here, Shelter Fundamentals has a stack of books next to it. And so that means that Shelter Fundamentals is considered a curriculum within Edge. So the system Edge thinks of Shelter Fundamentals as a curriculum. Now, what that means is that there's more than one component to it. So you either can take the class and then there might be an assessment test after it. A curriculum could mean that there's two different ways to take the same class. So either a calendar in a classroom class or an online self-study. And so instead of having both of those classes listed individually, they made it into a curriculum. So when you open that curriculum, that's where you can choose, hey, I want to take this as an online self-study, or hey, I want to sign up for the classroom session that's being offered. The other things curriculum can show you is as multiple classes that make up one thing. So for example, if you are coming to the Red Cross and what you want to do is you want to work in sheltering, you can sign up for the Mass Care Sheltering Service Associate curriculum. And when you do that and you open up that curriculum, it's going to show you the required classes, all of the required classes that you need to take to be a sheltering service associate. So that curriculum is made up of a variety of classes for you to complete one task. So don't be afraid of the curriculum. Really search for the classes that you're looking for, request that, and then you'll be able to open up that curriculum and see what that curriculum is made up of. Once you sign up for a curriculum, you request it, it is automatically going to go into your My Transcripts. So you can go back to your My Transcripts button, and when you're on there, you will be able to see the classes that you are registered for. The default in the system is showing you classes that you're registered for but have not taken. Once you take classes, they will disappear from that screen, from that default screen that you're seeing. To see your completed classes, so classes that you registered for and took and completed, where it says active is a drop-down menu, again, active is the default, you can switch it to completed, and it will just switch it over and show you all the classes that you have completed. Now, as I was saying before, once you're registered for a class, it may be a curriculum. As you can see here, you can open that curriculum for Disaster Cycle Services and Overview. And the reason Disaster Cycle Services is an overview is a curriculum is because you have a choice to either take that as a classroom class, if there's one offered by you, or you can take it as an online self-study. So when you open that curriculum, you're going to see Disaster Cycle Services with that little computer screen next to it, and you can click launch and launch into that online self-study. Or you can choose at that point to sign up for a classroom class if that's how you want to take it. Now, if you register for something that is only an online self-study, it's not part of a curriculum, it's not a classroom class, you're automatically going to see that computer screen next to the name of the class. When you're ready, you can go into My Transcripts. You'll see the name of the class, like this one, Meet the Client, What is a Family, and click Launch. That will launch you into the online self-study. A little tip for everyone out there, you want to make sure, it doesn't matter if you are on a Mac, if you're on a PC, if you're using Google Chrome, if you're using Firefox, you need to make sure that your pop-up blockers are turned off. When you launch that program, launch that class, it is going to pop up a separate screen where that class is going to start to run. So please make sure that you have your pop-up blockers turned off. Next, we're going to start talking about different acronyms that you may see and hear along the way that you should start becoming familiar with. The chart that you're seeing up here is the GAP chart. GAP is an acronym that you're going to hear quite often within the Red Cross, and GAP stands for Group, Activity, and Position. The main thing that I want you to take away from seeing this chart is that there are many different activities, many different opportunities for you to volunteer within the American Red Cross. So if you get to start working in sheltering and you say, you know what, this just isn't my cup of tea, there are many different other opportunities and things that you can help out with within Disaster Cycle Services within the Red Cross. Now again, continuing a little bit further on group activity position. So GAP is associated with what your interests are. So if you are interested in mass care sheltering, that is why you came to the Red Cross. You want to help people that have been affected by disasters, that are living in shelters, helping them get back on their feet. What you will train for and work towards is the GAP MC/SH/SA. And what that stands for is the group is mass care. The activity within that group is sheltering. And the position is service associate. And we'll talk about that here in just a minute. Like I said, there are many different gaps based on what your activities are, what your interests are. If you start getting going within a specific gap and you're not really fond of it, you want to try, or maybe you are fond of it, but you want to continue to grow and do additional things, you can do that well. And so really you will train for different gaps. Different gaps have different training. And this is also how we identify what we're looking for during times of disasters. So when we have the Hurricane Sandys out there, the Hurricane Matthews, we recruit based off of these gaps. Now, like I just said before, GAP stands for Group Activity Position, and we just talked about group. Our example was mass care sheltering, so the group was mass care, the activity was sheltering within that group, and the position was service associate. And so, as I just told you, there's different training for different gaps. And if you say, I am interested in working in sheltering, that interests me, you would start out as a mass care trainee. And that's really where everyone starts. They start out in that trainee position, no matter what gap that you are interested in. As you take your training, complete your training for the specific gap that you are interested in, you will then move from a trainee to an SA, or a service associate, as we call them. And that is that position. Now, if you work as a service associate, there may be a few additional classes, but really after that, you're getting out in the field, you're gaining that hands-on experience. Once you do that, if you decide, hey, I'm really enjoying this, I really want to continue moving within this gap, Again, you may be asked to take just a few more classes, but then you can be promoted to a supervisor, and that's a different position. So those positions are really letting us know what level you are within that gap. So are you a trainee? Are you a service associate? Are you a supervisor? And that's what those positions are within that gap. Now, the other thing that you're going to start to hear a lot is DAT. DAT stands for Disaster Action Team. Our DAT teams are our initial responders in the American Red Cross. Typically, what DAT members are responding to are home fires, single-family fires, multifamily fires. The Red Cross nationwide is responding to over 70,000 fires every year. However, our DAT teams are also going to be those that are our initial responders after a tornado hits, maybe a flash flood hit, an earthquake. If you're in earthquake territory, your DAT members are really going to be the ones heading out in the field. They're going to meet up with the families that have been affected. Depending on how large scale that disaster is. For example, if it's a single family fire, those DAT teams are going to meet up with that family that was affected by the fire, provide them with some financial assistance. However, if it's something bigger, if it's that tornado, an earthquake, if it's a multifamily fire, there may be many families that have been affected. And so those DAT members are really going to be working within their own chain of command to see if a shelter needs to be open, and then making sure that those first few steps are taken for that shelter to start opening. DAT teams are asked to take on-call shifts, which we talked about during our logging hours portion of this orientation. And when you take a DAT on-call shift, you're essentially saying, if that shift is from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., I will be on call. And so if there is that fire, if something does happen, if those DAT members are needed to respond to a disaster, you're going to get that phone call and be asked to go on scene and meet up with those families, make those assessments of what those initial steps need to be. Are you providing financial assistance for one family, or is that larger conversation starting to happen about needing to open a shelter? Now, like we talked within GAPS, DAT also has their progression. If you are interested in DAT, you start out as a trainee, just as you would in GAP for GAPS, and you'll be taking training. Trainees also go out with members and leaders to do some job shadowing. They really are able to get out in the field right away. As a trainee, again, it's a lot of job shadowing and making sure that you're completing your training. Once you do that, you move from a trainee to a DAT member. DAT members are the ones that are out there. They're meeting with the clients. They're providing that assistance. And then we also have DAT leaders. So as you've been a DAT member, you really know the process. You know the paperwork that needs to be done. And it's a good fit for you. You're really enjoying it. You can move then from a DAT member to a DAT leader. And those leaders are really there. They're going out in the field as well, just like DAT members are. But they're the mentors to everyone else. They're the ones that may be leading your DAT meetings. They're the ones that may assist you in making a call if and following the guidelines of if shelters need to be open. So they're really the folks, your subject matter experts out in the field with you. So after this orientation, you may be asking yourself, what's next? After this orientation is done, your workforce engagement team that reached out to you initially and provided you that welcome packet I talked about will be reaching out to you again. They're going to get you in touch with those program managers or your program specialist. We talked about that in the beginning as well. They are going to get you in touch with your activity lead. Remember, activity is what your interests are. So if you are interested in DAT, they're going to get you in touch with your DAT person that's going to help you get started on that training, getting you some job shadowing. If you are interested in that mass care sheltering position, they're going to get you in touch with your mass care lead, who again is going to help you with making sure that you have the right training, you know what meetings are coming up, and what events that we have going on. And then workforce engagement is also going to provide you with an additional list of volunteer opportunities. So you come into the Red Cross having a specific activity in mind that you want to work in. However, there are many other opportunities that are going on as well, where we always need help. So we have home fire campaigns. We may have volunteer recognition events coming up. We have meetings that go on. We have trainings that occur. We have maybe a presentation is needed. Maybe there's just a wide variety of opportunities that are out there that not only your disaster program manager and specialist, but your workforce engagement team members are going to help make sure that you know about. So again, like I said, they're going to follow up with further information on your activity, interests, and then volunteer opportunities, and then of course meeting times and locations. If you have questions or problems, like I just talked about before, you can reach out to your workforce engagement team member. You can always contact your disaster program managers or specialist, contact your activity lead, or you can contact myself as well. I am the regional workforce engagement manager. So again, we kind of talked about chapter, paid staff positions, and regional. My position, I cover the entire state of Wisconsin. So if you need something, doesn't matter where you are, get a hold of me. I can either point you in the right direction or assist you with any training or any questions that you might have. However, you do have folks right within your chapter that are listed on top that are there to help you as well. They're there to help guide you. I do want to thank you very much. Welcome to the team. Know that you have lots of support. The Wisconsin region, you'll hear it time and time again, is one of the best that's out there. So very excited to have you on the team, and let us know if there's anything that we can do to help you.